On this episode, we're going to be talking about the new Fallout TV show and how it fits into the canon of the Fallout games and why the Fallout series is not like typical series when it comes to the concept of canon. Oh, hey there, Scabby Scummers and Vault Dwellers. Crimson Oracle here with another episode of Dome Runners TV. And I finally get a chance to wear my Pip-Boy on screen. Put a lot of time into this, and it's making its first actual appearance on the channel. I think this was more about something that I needed for me than about this production or whatever. But it's fun to have costumes, that's the kind of lady I am. So, it's been a week, and I've got another video coming out. That's faster than usual for me lately. But I wanted to talk about this topic. I wanted to kind of dive into the topic of the Fallout show. I know that everybody's talking about it right now, and so it's like... it's the, algorithm friendly thing to do. In fact, if I was really going for like the most algorithm friendly approach, I definitely would have done this video 2 days ago when I wanted to do the video. But I didn't. I spent the weekend hanging out with my family and gardening and doing all the stuff that is kind of like filling my cup. And so I'm making this on Sunday night. Now, I wanted to talk about the Fallout show because I started it on Wednesday night when it dropped. I watched like the first 6 episodes all straight in a row. Was exhausted for work the next day, but I did not finish it until Saturday morning because my family started watching it on Thursday and they really liked it, so I decided to just go ahead and finish it with them. So that's what I've been doing. And I, therefore, have watched a bunch of the episodes two times now. And I have to say that I really like the show. I was pleasantly surprised across the board. The environments, the action, the plot lines, it's all, like, I think it's got a lot going for it. And I think that you're going to see that it's very popular. I think that that's already the case, and I think it's only going to grow from there. And I'm very excited to see where they go with future seasons. And my only real disappointment with Fallout TV show is that nobody at Microsoft got their shit together to make sure that a Fallout game would be coming out in some proximity to the TV show that's going to drive a ton of interest in Fallout. I know that the next gen update is coming out in a few weeks, and that will get some people playing back to Fallout 4, and I'll probably check it out once it's out, although my PC is not so powerful, so I don't know if the next gen update is going to do me any good. But I do have my PC laptop that I could play it on, but mostly I've been playing Fallout on my Xbox Live, like virtual thing through the browser on my MacBook Pro, because I got this new computer and I really like it, and I tried out the cloud gaming and it actually makes gaming on a Mac like pretty decent. The only downside is that for the Microsoft one, it's running on Xbox, which is like, I wish that it was running on a GeForce machine, because I have GeForce now as well. I wish it was running on a GeForce machine, and I, had a little bit more graphical oomph behind it, and it was running the PC version of the software, so the mods would work a little bit better because the Xbox mods for Fallout 4 don't work as well, and yada yada yada. Anyway, so I've been immersing myself in some Fallout lately, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about kind of Fallout and me before we start. So I first got into Fallout in 1997 when the game came out. My stepdad was playing it as soon as it came out. He was big into RPGs. I watched him play through it. I decided to make a character and try it out, and I really, really liked it. It was really up my alley. And so I wound up playing through Fallout 2, through Fallout Tactics. I then played Brotherhood of Steel, which I do not recommend, and no one recommends. And I just, I really like this game series a lot. And I played Fallout 3 in 2008 as soon as it came out, bought it for Xbox, played through the whole thing, and really, really enjoyed it. Played Fallout New Vegas when it came out, and was so much more impressed with that than Fallout 3 that I never replayed Fallout 3 again after that. I would just always go back to New Vegas because there were so many different ways to play it and so many different things to do. And I go back to Fallout 1 and 2 a lot. I've probably replayed them more than any other game. I think I've probably played through each game at least 20 times. So what I'm saying here is that I'm one of those like grognardy kind of No Mutants Allowed era Fallout fans. You always prefer the stuff that's fresh, when your adolescence is happening. Unless you're one of those weird kids who's like, I like vintage stuff already, which would be like the people who are like, Fallout, Wasteland. Okay, that's the real OG. Not that I'm making fun of people who like Wasteland. Just that if you're from my generation and you're like, no, Wasteland is way better than Fallout, I feel like you're looking at it with some rose-tinted glasses in like a nostalgia kind of way towards something that you didn't actually experience firsthand. Anyway, not to throw shade at the Wasteland fans, because Wasteland 2 and 3 are excellent. That hardly makes me unique. I'm certainly not the only like person who played the original Fallouts who's like, man, I wish that the games were more like this than, the kind of Bethesda shoot 'em up style games that, like, Fallout 3, like, I enjoyed the fact that I was playing in a Fallout universe and that, they kind of expanded on the world. And I was, I'm from Maryland, so, being able to go to places that I've been traveling to my whole life, in DC and in the surrounds, was really fun because it's like, oh, these are all places that I'm familiar with. And like, this is it feels interesting and kind of fun to be playing in an environment that I actually am from and to have it kind of reflect some of those spaces, obviously, to an extent. And the thing was that, like, the storytelling in Bethesda games has never been as good as in Interplay or, BioWare or the other titles, the other, like, RPG heavyweights from the golden era of RPGs. And we're now in this new dawn, of RPG games, and there's all kinds of cool stuff coming out, like, Rogue Trader and Baldur's Gate 3 and what have you. But Fallout remains kind of this. I put it on a pedestal. Fallout 1 and 2 are just, that is the sort of perfect way to make a role-playing game. Obviously limited by era and stuff. But it represents that kind of tabletop role-playing experience. And so the TV show comes in with a really interesting kind of job, which is that, like, it's going to tell a story. It's going to tell a story in a place that we've been before. It's going to tell a story in a place we've been before after the stories that we've experienced, which will, by definition, require it to kind of create new story and fill in gaps about what we didn't know before. And so we find ourselves, also having to kind of tell the story from the perspective of, like, what a game would feel like, almost, like, this is the first act of a Fallout game turned into a scripted TV show. And it actually feels that way. Like, that is, like, you get Lucy, she's running around the vault, she's kind of got plans, The character stats are like literally discussed in like a room, kind of like in Fallout 3. And then you wind up kind of getting derailed and getting sent out into the wasteland to go explore, and a metric ton of bullshit falls into your lap, and you're suddenly finding yourself doing horrific things. And let's address this now. I'm going to have to talk about spoilers in order to address some of this canon stuff. So if you have not watched through to the end of the Fallout series, and you are one of those people who feels the need to not learn about the ending of something before watching it, because that is a specific subsection of people, and I get kind of I get tired of people suggesting that everyone should follow that. I can't conceive of how that would ruin a TV show for me. So when other people suggest that I turn off their video because I haven't watched the show, I'm always just kind of like, I roll my eyes because I'm like, I don't care. Like the knowing what's going to happen in a show has never affected how much I enjoyed that show. Surprise, okay, like a twist is a gimmick. It's a weakness in storytelling to me to rely on that kind of thing to make your story good, in my opinion. But that's me. Anyway, so we've got the topic of the new canon that the Fallout show has sort of revealed for us, and like I was saying, the show does a really good job of feeling like you're a Fallout character. Lucy is a Fallout character who has gotten kind of roped into this long quest that has all of these annoying side parts that she has to deal with. And they capture that really well. They also capture the world and the feeling of like the kind of grittiness and the absurdity really well. I've heard people complain about the sort of humor and absurdity, and I feel like if it was a different series, different setting, I would understand it maybe. But in the context of Fallout, which is like a story that features extensive amounts of like weird, wacky kind of humor, the idea that like we're somehow, like going for, the show is going for like weak comedic relief or whatever. Like I just don't like that. You could run into Tim the Wizard from Monty Python and the Holy Grail in one of the encounters in Fallout 2. Like there's so much goofy stuff, and I think they really nailed the tone perfectly. I think that the characters have an interesting progression. Like Maximus is an interesting character. Like he's someone who is angry, and he feels kind of entitled to this like path forward that he sees for himself. And when he kind of gets confronted with the reality of the Brotherhood Knights, he realizes that it's maybe not actually all it's cracked up to be, as this like incompetent foul-mouthed jackass is ordering him to go explore a dark unlit cave with no flashlight, and he's like, I need to maybe question some choices that I've made, but you can't just leave the Brotherhood. And I think it's really interesting to me that they included a non-binary character in the Brotherhood of Steel, played by a trans actor. Like, felt like maybe a slight acknowledgement of the fact that like Fallout has a weirdly active following in the trans community, because we all seem to like wind up gravitating to it at some point. Even though I can't really like explain to you in any kind of like any kind of clear way why trans people like Fallout so much. We just do. That's just life. The show is I think it's a good example of kind of the like process of like breaking down a main character to the point where they're, they're willing to do things that they just never would have done before. So I'll come out and say it straight. Like the direction they went in with the New California Republic being this kind of like fallen state / just say Shady Sands and maybe the rest of the NCR still exists. It's very unclear. The show did not give us like a clear portrait of exactly what the state of the politics of the rest of the NCR looks like outside of Shady Sands. They moved Shady Sands like a fairly long distance to a place where then the original game's map doesn't make any sense because how could the Vault 13 be west of Shady Sands if Shady Sands is like in LA, like on the waterfront? There's no mountains west of there. So the thing is that these kinds of things are going to happen. The most interesting stuff that we got filled in was the stuff about Vault Tech having these other companies come in and potentially run vaults and run their own experiments and creating this kind of like survival of the fittest process for like the most powerful companies. And I almost wonder how much about that the Enclave knew, or whether they were kind of off doing their own thing and weren't aware of how, out of pocket Vault Tech had gotten. Not entirely clear to me. Not entirely clear to me where that kind of boundary is. And then we've got, this, the destruction of Shady Sands. And the timeline is confusing because of that chalkboard in Vault 4, which I think we don't need to assume is an error when it could easily just be that they were talking about, like, the start of the decline of the NCR with the crisis in Nevada, and that would sufficiently explain it to me, and we don't even need to kind of think beyond that. But it's also possible that they slightly changed the dates of some stuff, and New Vegas took place a little bit earlier, and Shady Sands was nuked at a certain time, and whatever. Ultimately, the timeline stuff just isn't that important because, like, this is a standalone piece of media at this point. Like, there's no Fallout games interacting with this era of the West Coast. The closest we have to it is New Vegas, and New Vegas would be in the show's past, and we don't know exactly where the kind of, things line up. And if things change dates a little bit, does it ultimately matter that much? Like, if the date that New Vegas takes place was to drop back like 5 years, would that like ultimately change the game much at all? I don't think so. Tandy would be, would still be dead, I believe. Maybe not. I don't know. I need to double check on that. Regardless, the whole situation with the stuff, the timing and all that is not really the issue. For me, the thing that the show kind of misses about Fallout 1 and 2 that I think that I wish that they kind of showed more of was that Fallout conceptually was really a game about telling the story about what happens after the end of the world when you've got decades of time and people can rebuild. So the way I've heard it described is post-apocalyptic. There's that kind of Mad Max, the apocalypse is about to happen or just happened kind of like feeling of kind of era. And then Fallout is like something a little bit later than that, where, society has reestablished itself and people coming out of bunkers are having to contend with the fact that, like, there are cities and towns of people who are trading and farming and all that stuff. And you have to kind of deal with that and like learn to live with them. And learn the rules of a new society. The show, just because of the fact that they set it up to be that Shady Sands had been destroyed, and I actually thought it was clever that Maximus was like, what, the Great War was when I was a kid. because in his mind, like, there was a nuclear bomb that went off when he was a kid, and it destroyed everything, and like that was the end of the world to him. It happened 200 years after the fall of the rest of the world, and that's interesting. But it does feel kind of like a backward step for the story, because like what was interesting about Fallout 1 and especially Fallout 2 is seeing the politics at play as these like different forces all kind of butt into each other. And yeah, I would rather see more of that and get to see like the hub and get to see Junktown and what it looks like now than kind of be introduced to like a new place like Philly where things are, significantly degraded from where we were. Yeah, obviously that's that's not as much as what I was hoping for in terms of storyline. But you know what? It does do a really good job of telling the story in the setting that is the less sort of my interest kind of setting. The Fallout 3, Fallout 4, it's been 200 years and for some reason society has not reestablished itself at all kind of setting where it's pure chaos and blood and murder. And you know what? That is still a valid post-apocalyptic environment, and while it's not my preference, I think that it's silly to condemn it for embracing that when that's clearly where Bethesda feels most comfortable with the series. And so, like, while I would love to see other developers other than Bethesda do takes on Fallout, they do own it, and so this is their version of Fallout. And what I wanted to really address is the fact that there's always going to be canon for Fallout that contradicts how you experience these games, because you're not going to play through the game exactly the way the official story happens. And the game is designed and intended for you to get a unique outcome when you play it, as long as you're, taking different steps each time and making different choices. So the idea that we care about which ending Bethesda chooses to build on, or to, often just mention sort of lightly in the backdrop, because that really is often like the endings of the different games are still very spaced apart from each other, either geographically or temporally. So because of that distance, the ending of the previous game is not as important. Obviously Tandy got rescued in the official Fallout chronology because she becomes president of the NCR. Obviously, the Brotherhood wound up completing Project Purity. That is what the choices they've made about the endings of those games, and that's ultimately just not that important compared to what you chose to do in the game, because the point of the game is player choice, right? So even though they are having to pick one version of events and sort of make that official, the official company line isn't that important. And I've talked about this in my video on Warhammer and how Warhammer doesn't need a canon, and I think that it really applies even more so in the case of Fallout, because canon is about having a fixed set of events, a history that went an exact way, and Fallout, by its very nature, by its function, is a story where the possibility of multiple endings and different chronologies and timelines and different ways of seeing things and big retcons and then decanonization and all of this kind of stuff can happen. And it doesn't really affect the individual games because each game is its own story, and the story goes the way you choose, and the outcomes are the outcomes that your choices make. And the official line on what isn't the events of that particular storyline is like a background choice that you only find out in like in terminal entries or like NPC dialogue in a future game, if that. So the ending that you experience, the ending that is the ending that you saw, is the ending for you. And it doesn't matter that the future stories build on a different ending. And each story that you experience, you get to experience that way, because that's what Fallout is. I have seen people say that the TV show, by presenting a single story without that kind of element of choice, does not fulfill the same kind of it doesn't scratch the itch that the Fallout games play, and or the Fallout games scratch. And I agree. I think that it's a fundamentally different experience. You're watching a dedicated story that is one thing, and you don't have any control over it. And I think that that's fine. But I could see how that would not work for someone who's really like I really care about player choice, and I'm not really interested in the story that Bethesda wants to tell. That's fine. I think that you might miss out on some stuff that is really interesting and worth watching, and some fun action and just some general like really enjoyable television. But that's your choice, and I don't think there's anything wrong with making that decision. But I will say that I think that the show is very good for what it is, which is just sort of this portrait of this setting. And I don't think that complaints about canon are really that important, because that's just not that important to Fallout as a series. They didn't radically change any events in the background, and even if they had, they wouldn't change what's in Fallout 1 and Fallout 2, which is, to me, the only real canon in the game anyway. Everything that happens after that is some degree of compromise, fan fiction, whatever you want to call it. It's not that I'm against Fallout 3 and Fallout 4 existing, but like I don't view those as particularly representative of the sort of story that Fallout 1 and Fallout 2 are telling. So I just don't stress about the fact that they make choices that I don't like, because I could easily play Fallout 1 and Fallout 2 and have all of the experiences and all of that. I can read the Fallout Bible. I don't have to acknowledge or engage with the stuff that I don't find interesting, because that's the nature of these games. And then when I play Fallout 4, it's mostly as survival mode, farming sim, where I'm building settlements and trying to kind of start a new home in the wasteland, and I don't actually really I don't actually really engage with the main storyline, because I don't care. I don't want to find Sean. I don't want to deal with the Institute. And I could play hundreds of hours of Fallout 4 just farming crops and doing supply runs and selling stuff to merchants and crafting and getting lots of XP from building things in settlements and not actually accomplishing anything in terms of advancing the story, and I can be happy doing that, because Fallout 4, while it has flaws, still functions to me as a system for kind of being in this immersed world and seeing the ghouls and seeing the people and getting to hang out with Piper and getting to hang out with Hancock and getting to hang out with the detective in the fedora, whose name is suddenly escaping me. Regardless, Fallout 4 is not what I wanted, but there's a lot of really great things in there, and Far Harbor slaps. So, just look at it like that. You can either enjoy the thing for what it is, or if you don't enjoy it at all, you just don't need to engage with it. Or if you want to critique it, that's fine, because I think there are plenty of legitimate critiques you can make about the show. I just think that what I'm mostly seeing is people who are, just super concerned with what the official take from Bethesda is on how these different games went. And I just feel like it misses the point. Like, the canon is just because something has to have been, like, we have to decide on certain events. We don't even have to decide on all of it. I like the Mass Effect style system where, each choice that you make gets carried over as long as you have the save from your previous game. That's a clever system. I think that it's probably impractical when you're talking about, decades-long franchises where you're not planning everything out from the start because you're not necessarily going to be able to make all of the choices compatible or whatever, and things really start to diverge the longer time periods go, where like butterfly effects really start to happen. But regardless, I want people. I know that like I'm just some lady who's just lecturing you about why you shouldn't care about something that obviously a lot of people are passionate about. But bear with me, just like think about it. Bethesda has to choose an ending, right? They have to choose a storyline. But like that doesn't mean that the choices that you made in the game and the things that you envision are any less valid. And these people didn't create this game, they're just telling stories in somebody else's sandbox, same as you. So relax. It's just canon's just not that important. What's funny, I don't want to be the person who's like, my brand is that I just hate canon. Because what I like is when an author tells a story in a universe and has like a set plan out, and they tell the whole story, and one author tells a story, then I think canon is wonderful. The Lord of the Rings canon is great. I think that Tolkien is an overrated writer overall, and I'm not afraid to say it, internet. I'm not afraid to say it. But regardless, I think George R. R. Martin is also a little bit overrated. But I enjoy the Song of Fire and Ice and all of the ancillary media that goes with it. And I don't have a problem with people writing a canon. I think it's interesting, even the way you see like a canon kind of shift and change when you have one author, like George Lucas, like going back and kind of changing things in his stories, and you really get a lot of that with Dune, where as things get fleshed out later, you get these kind of big waffling ideas about whether the story is telling a story that's anti-charismatic figures or like pro, God, emperor, dictators, saving us, and there's a lot of different ways you can interpret it, and I think that that's cool and interesting, and I think that like having this be something that allows us a window into like the thought process of the writer and kind of what they were trying to tell with their story is really nifty, and like something that we could all benefit from thinking more about when we're engaging with this kind of media, instead of just jumping to the idea that like an adaptation is bad because it doesn't conform to the way we view it. Instead, to just have a more open-minded kind of approach to tackling it. That's a whole other topic, and I've got probably going to be an hour and a half, 2 hour long video that I've been writing for months that will be talking about that topic in more detail. But I just wanted to pop on and make this video because I think that it just is there's some grousing that's just unnecessary, and I think that having someone say to you like, hey, it's not a big deal, like it's just not, like don't worry about it. I get it, you don't like certain choices and certain personalities behind the scenes of Bethesda. That's okay, but like also Tim Kaine loved the Fallout show. And he has as much reason to be bitter about changes in the story as anyone. And he's not bringing all that baggage with him into viewing it. And you don't have to. You can. All these flavors, you can choose to be salty. But wouldn't it be nice just to enjoy something and not worry about where it fits into a bigger scheme, because ultimately the canon of Fallout is this sort of like nebulous shifting sands that don't necessarily matter that much between games. One woman's opinion. Thanks as always for everyone who supports the show and has supported the show in the past. Thank you to Carl Casey at Wipeout Audio for the show's theme music. And of course, check out the podcast, The Dome Runners, if you want to learn more about the world of Necromunda. And expect to see more Fallout-related content on the channel, as I really love Fallout, and I'm engaging a lot with the Fallout stuff, and there's a new Fallout game coming out, and I'm trying to get some Fallout RPG stuff going on, and, just general Fallout. Pending, of course, my free time. But with that, everybody out there, please stay safe, and don't forget to change your paint water. And don't drink the radioactive water. And maybe it's okay to wash your brushes in radioactive water, but don't lick your brushes if you wash them in radioactive water. Peace.